Any plans for this evening? Perhaps a game night?
Game over, man. It's game over.
Shut up. Play the game. Play it from your heart.
26 years ago, we started playing a little game. Now, we're all gonna sit down. We're gonna finish it.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
And here we go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dice Camera Action, a mashup podcast about board games and movies where cardboard meets the silver screen. Each episode, we review a board game. Then, if you're a cinephile, you can stick around about a discussion about a movie with a similar overlapping theme. I'm Jason Tripp. And I'm reminded watching today's movie that prehistoric America might be more exciting and safer than America in 2025.
I'm Matt Cousineau, and thanks to this movie, we know definitively what ended the dinosaurs. So it was, in fact, an asteroid. Today we have Jim Gamer. I only know you as Jim Gamer. Is that can't be your last name, is it?
That would be epic if it was.
That's my official title.
Officially Jim Gamer. Let's go with that. Right, so Jim Gamer, you can find Jim Gamer on Instagram at jim.gamer or whatboardgame.com, where he reviews board games. So Jim and I have been part of a kind of an online board game community through the Gamecasters for quite a few years now, and so I'm really excited to have him on the pod. Welcome, Jim.
Welcome, Jim.
Thank you very much. Yeah, great to have you here
with us.
R.I.P. Thank you.
R.I.P. Gamecasters for sure. Yeah. They've hung it up for now, at least, and hopefully maybe they'll make a reappearance at some point. But
so, where's home for you, Jim? You're across the pond somewhere.
Just south of London here in the UK, and it's just nice that all the letters I wrote complaining about the Gamecasters have finally been listened, and I'm glad to see they've been cancelled. It's been a lifelong dream of mine.
Shut those guys down.
In that podcast.
Okay, before we get into games and movies, Jim, a very important question. Which English football club do you support?
I'm a Leatherhead football fan. They're my local team, so they're like 8 leagues off the Premier League, so you never would have heard of them. But they're 5 minutes from where I live, so
I wouldn't have. Yeah.
Leatherhead fan.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Very cool. So on the episode today, we're going to be doing some shout outs as we usually do. We will be reviewing the latest Stonemaier game, Vantage, which I'm excited to talk about. And we've paired that with the 2023 movie called 65 with Adam Driver. And we have a special treat. We got a special guest interview from Jamey Stegmaier himself. So, Jason and I just interviewed him, and we're going to be kind of interjecting some of that interview throughout the podcast. I'm excited to present that. And he's got a little bit of a special announcement for us as well. So if you listen, further into the episode, you'll be hearing about a really special announcement from Stonemaier Games, which I'm excited to share with you guys.
Not as excited as I am, because Stonemaier Games, that's my company. I've been an advocate for Stonemaier on this podcast, and Jamey's my favorite designer, so it was great to have a conversation with him and to unpack and talk about Vantage, which is a whole lot of game, but we're not quite there yet. I guess we got some shout outs to do in the meantime.
That's right. Yeah. So there's 3 of us, and we've got a couple of shoutouts each. So we'll try not to be too long-winded here. But I guess I'll get us started out. I played last night. A mutual friend of ours, John, came over, and another friend, Ian, and we played El Grande. It was my first
30th
ever
anniversary.
Of El Grande. Yeah. So El Grande, for those who don't know, is an area majority game.
It's the area majority, the OG area majority.
The OG, sure, yeah. And I don't even know who the designer is off the top of my head. Do you? I should too. Usually I write this up. But El Grande is an area majority game where basically it's dudes on a map or cubes on a map, and everybody starts with a hand of 13 cards, and then you in turn order. I know it's
of course it's Ulrich and Kramer. It's Wolfgang Kramer.
Yes,
Richard
yeah.
Ulrich.
I knew it was one of those those guys or those groups of guys, but I wouldn't have known it off the top of my head. So apologies for that. But yeah, so you have cards in your hand from 1 to 13, and then in turn order you'll play those cards, and then whoever played the highest numbered card gets to choose one of 5 different specialty cards that lets you put X amount of cubes on the map, and then perform some sort of action, whether it's move cubes around, remove cubes,
move the giant king on the board.
When you play the cubes out there, they have to be adjacent to the territory with the king in it. So that makes things really, really interesting. That's probably my favorite mechanism.
Or in the castle, there's a 3D castle on the board. You can always drop them.
That's right. Yeah, the Castillo, I guess it's called.
That's its own region. Yeah. You familiar with this game, Jim? You must have played El Grande. Yeah.
Yeah, I have, but not for a long time though. It's been years.
Yeah, so it was my first play, and I thought it was really, really cool. And it's it's one of these games that's very light rule set, super easy to get to the table, understand. It was taught to us in like less than 10 minutes. Like within a couple of rounds, you're right into it, and you're thinking ahead, and you're trying to plan things just so. And despite the super low rule set, there's just so much to think about and consider. And I had an absolute blast, and I definitely want to get it to the table again soon.
Do you have the big box? I have the big box, and it has like a bunch of expansions in it too, which is cool.
I do have.
It adds to the rule sets.
It's not called a big box. Yeah. It's not called that, but it's called a something edition, and it does have a whole bunch of expansions in it. So I do think I do have that one. Yeah,
which is cool, because if it gets a little stale with the base game, you can always add different elements and layers, which is good. So still one of my favorites. And I think it's still hanging on in the top 100 on BGG. I'm pretty sure. And this is like 30 years later, so that's high praise for this game. So I'm glad you finally got it to the table. Still one of my favorites area control games.
Yeah, it's actually said it is hanging on. It's number 99.
99. It's hanging in there.
So it's definitely just barely hanging in there.
Well, it certainly is a great one.
Sure.
See what I did there? It's a great one.
It's a grande one. Yeah,
it's a hockey joke for us Canadians.
All right, Jim, give us a shout out.
I've been playing a lot of Cretaceous Rails this year. It came out earlier on, and I absolutely love it. Have you guys played Cretaceous Rails?
I have not. I've heard good things, but I have not played it.
Not come to you guys yet.
Tell us why I should.
It's crazy fun. So it mixes up some amazing stuff of load of cool little dinosaurs linked a little bit to the movie later, and trains. So 2 super nerdy things that us board gamers absolutely love, and it throws them into one crazy little thing that just looks so beautiful, so colourful on the table, but it's actually quite crunchy. And the reason why I'm playing it so much recently is I finally got hold of the expansion, the first expansion that came out, which is Cretaceous Skies, which brings into the game pterodons, which I absolutely adore. So the game comes with these cool little mini brightly coloured dinosaurs, and now you've got some pterodons on little stands, which introduce some really cool metrics into the game. So the expansion is fantastic. It's 4 little modules. You can use just one of them, 2 of them, 3 of them, or all 4 of them. It doesn't add any complexity, really. I think it makes the teach perhaps 30 seconds longer, but it just adds so much to the game. It's a perfect expansion, and it turns what is a 9 out of 10 game to a 9.5 for me. I absolutely adore this expansion. I'd heartily recommend everyone to give it a go. There's a crowdfunding coming up soon with a new expansion, which I think is Cretaceous Seas. So I'll be all over backing that one when that comes. I think it's coming to Kickstarter in October, I think. So I'll be looking out for that one for sure.
Sweet. No, I haven't played it yet. I've heard from some others some buzz about it, and if it's getting a second expansion already, it must be flying off the shelves. So definitely one we'll look at getting to the table here. Maybe we can do if and when we do a full future review, Jim, we'll get you back to join us for that.
Yeah, it looks really cool with the colorful people, like the colorful minis and everything. It looks really neat.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It looks really good. Got good presence on the table. Just looking at it here.
For sure, the dinos all start on the board, so it starts with everything there. That all the dinos are there. So one complaint is that throughout the game you're collecting these dinosaurs and you use them for stuff that helps you build your engine. And so one complaint is that the board at the end of the game doesn't look as cool as it does at the start because you've taken them off. But they haven't disappeared; they're just a different bit of the table. But it's a weird complaint that the game has, that it looks better at the start than it does at the end. But it's really fun. It mixes,
usually it's the opposite.
Really interesting mechanics. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's well worth checking out.
Cool. Nice. We'll definitely check it out, and hopefully our listeners will give it a look as well. That's Crustacean Rails and Crustacean Skies expansion. All right. Well, Matt went back to 1995 for a game. I'm going to go way beyond that. And again, this is a new experience for Matt, so I want him to weigh in on this too. But I'm feeling nostalgic today. At our local community cafe housed in the church where I work, we run a weekly meetups for games, and we had a crokinole night, and so we had a bunch of crokinole boards there, and I didn't realize till Matt showed up that he had never played crokinole.
Never played a flicking game.
Never played a flicking game at all. So we played crokinole and we played flick 'em up that night. I think after you left, we got into that later in the night. So it was just bringing me back to my childhood. I'm kind of a third generation crokinole enthusiast. My dad always said that his dad was the best player he ever saw. My dad's the best player I ever saw. And hopefully my son seeing some skill in me. I got to keep that trend going. We had a good night. Just flipping discs. 76 is when crokinole was invented, and that too is still in the top 100. It's 47th overall on BGG. Wild. Here we are 150 years later coming up to. So what were your experiences? I'm surprised this is the first ever flicking game. And you bored a board. I see you got it in the room here from a friend of ours.
Yeah, exactly. It was good. For some reason, I guess you have a custom board, right? And I was really struggling. Something about the shape of my hand or the size of the kind of the rails or the walls on the side. It
was a little tight.
I had a really good time, but I was really, really bad. And I thought, do I just suck at this game or whatever? And then I wanted to show my son Charlie, so I borrowed a crokinole board from our mutual friend John. So I got that to the table, maybe. And just the dimensions or whatnot, immediately picked it up and was way more accurate. And so the fun factor kind of jumped quite a bit for me.
Did Charlie like it?
He loved it. Yeah. So I've since, I haven't picked it up yet, but I did find a secondhand one that I'm going to pick up. On Marketplace. So
fantastic.
I'm excited to have my own board, and I'm loving it. It's really cool, and a Canadian invention, if I understand.
Yeah, that's right. There it is. Right.
Yeah.
Our claim to fame. Nice. Cool.
What else you got for, I guess, is it me again? Yeah. Okay.
Back to you. Movies. What have you been watching?
Getting into movies, I watched finally Eddington from Ari Aster, which, fumbled a little bit maybe with, what was the Joaquin Phoenix one?
Beau Was Afraid?
Beau Was Afraid, yeah. So I actually never got around to watching that because I read some reviews and it just does not seem like a movie I would enjoy at all.
The first hour you will love. Goes off the rails after that.
Okay. But I was a huge fan of Ari Aster's Hereditary and Midsommar. And, and now maybe a little bit of a falter with Beau Was Afraid, but a huge return to form, in my opinion. A very kind of polarized movie, Eddington, which after having watched it, I can see, there's a lot of political messaging in there. So it takes place in a small town in New Mexico, I believe.
Yeah, New Mexico.
And what seems to be sort of a conservative kind of town, and
pandemic set,
during the pandemic, during the height of the pandemic, when people are super paranoid and the government's telling everybody to wear masks, but then certain communities are pushing back against that. So there's a lot of that going on. There's also a huge through line with the Black Lives Matters protests that's happening at the same time. And what I really appreciated and loved about this movie, and I don't think it matters what side of the arguments for all of these issues that you're on, is that the movie does not take a side. The movie sort of skewers everyone from every direction with these subjects, right? Yeah. So it shows you the people that were like hardcore against, like, the COVID deniers. And it shows you the opposite end of the spectrum, the people that were super paranoid and double masking and shaming everybody else that wasn't wearing masks. Yeah. And they were doing the same thing with the Black Lives Matter stuff, the extremists on every side. And the movie shows you all of those things without basically taking a side or telling you how to feel. So it was like my wife's first reaction was like, is this too soon? So I can understand if people kind of recoiled from watching this movie because they felt it was too soon. But I thought it was brilliant. And I thought it was a really interesting kind of like
just a societal experiment or exploration of, it's a commentary, a social commentary.
Right? Sure.
Yeah.
That's probably the best, it is a social commentary on all these things without necessarily telling you how to feel, which is the same way that I felt about Civil War, the Alex Garland movie, where it has the Civil War and it's the right versus the left, but it doesn't take a side. It just shows you the nightmare that it would ensue if a civil war actually took place.
Well, and both those movies are interesting because, we say too soon, but at least here in North America, it's a whole lot of crazy, not just in the pandemic, but right now. I mean, things I don't want to go into the weeds here, but in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination, we have a lot of this both sides going on here and people blaming the other. And, I'm more upset with just the escalation of violence and how we treat others who we disagree with, right? Yeah, you can have your position. Let's not dehumanize each other, but let's learn to make space for different opinions. And I think Ari Aster has done a service to us with this movie. A lot of people are going to not like to watch it, but it's one of my favorite films of the year as well. I don't know. Did you see this movie, Jim? Are you familiar with it?
No, I've not seen that, but I really would like to. Listening to you guys talk about it, it sounds absolutely fascinating. I'm definitely going to check that one out for sure.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's set in small town America, but I think the themes it explores are certainly relevant for us here in Canada, for you in the UK and around the world, right? How we treat and blame and shame those who disagree with us. So I think, and just cinematically, I think it's pretty phenomenal. Great performances, Joaquin Phoenix and Pedro Pascal, who's basically in everything nowadays. Yeah. So
I think it's brilliantly made. The performances are amazing, and more than anything, I think the big message that I came out of it with is that extremism is the thing that's going to cause the problem, right? Like you can have your opinion, but the people that are not prepared to listen to the other side and have an open conversation, and that just villainize the other side and resort to violence, those are the people that are going to cause the violence
and that's on both ends of the spectrum. That's on the left and the right?
Absolutely.
This movie portrays that in spades. No, good choice. I'm glad you got to it. One of my favorites of the year, and probably be on my year list, I think, at this point. Cool. So I just, here in our hometown, Jim, and all our listeners, we have a film festival that just wrapped up, and it's called Cinefest, Sudbury Cinefest International Film Festival. And I typically go every year. This year, I just started a new job, so I didn't get to see as many screenings as I would have typically. I want to talk about one of the movies. There were two that really stood out above the rest, and I want to talk about one of those because it's maybe a little more fun to talk about with this audience, but it's a Korean film called No Other Choice by director Park Chan-wook, who some of our listeners might be familiar with. Old Boy is a famous movie that really put him on the map. He's done another incredible film called The Handmaiden, and he did, and two other films as sort of a trilogy around Old Boy. But this is his latest film, No Other Choice. And basically the plot, it's an interesting pairing. It's a social commentary as well. It's kind of in the same vein as Parasite a little bit. Not quite as tight of a screenplay, but basically the protagonist in this film, he's in Korea. He's been employed with this, paper company, working in a paper factory, middle management for 25 years. And early on in the film, he gets delivered this very expensive eel to eat. That I lived in South Korea. That's a delicacy over there. And he thinks, wow, I've arrived. I'm going to get a promotion. Little does he know, and even I knew this living in Korea, when you get a gift from your employer, it's not often a sign of a promotion. It could be you're about to get fired.
Oh.
So he actually basically he's on the chopping block. This company, American owned, they're downsizing, artificial intelligence is taking jobs away from people. So he's on the chopping block. And in the South Korean society, even more so than here, very much an honor shame society. If you lose your job, you've lost not just a job, you've lost your livelihood, your family, your honor, all of that's at risk. And so he's devastated. He thinks he's going to basically lose his social status, his wealth. It's not like Parasite where he's really the threat of being impoverished or homeless, but just going from a certain level to going down a rung or two. The next level down is like an existential crisis for him. And so he comes up with this plan. I won't spoil too much of the movie, but he comes up with this plan to make this fake sort of company and to get resumes of basically to weed out his competition to get a job with another company. And he literally decides he's going to take them out, 6 feet under out.
Oh boy.
To take out the competition. But he's awkward. He's a bit bumbling. So it's funny. It's hilarious at some points, but it's very serious subject matter at the same time. And the director does a good job of blending the comedy with the serious social commentary and the dark humor that's embedded in it. I think you'd really like this one, Matt. So it's called No Other Choice. I'm pretty sure you'll see it nominated for Best International Film and maybe some other as well. Nobody does direction like this guy. Some of the camera wizardry he does. His last film, Decision to Leave, was just jaw dropping. So I think a lot of our listeners would like it too. If you're a fan of Old Boy or some of his previous works, there's some violence in there and some laughs as well. It's a wild ride, but at the end of the day, it left me thinking a lot about our society, much like Eddington. So that's No Other Choice, coming out widely. I think November. This will play widely in theaters.
Cool. Jim, what you got for us?
I've been watching a lot of the studio recently, which I guess most people have seen. Have you guys been checking that out over there?
It is high on my list, but I have not watched it yet.
I have not.
Yeah,
so once again, tell us why we should, Jim.
Yeah. I jumped on the Emmy bandwagon after it won loads. And if something wins 1 or 2, you've got to try, right? But then when it wins that many, I thought this is obviously great, 10 out of 10 TV. And I watched the first episode and it instantly hooked me. But it was the second episode that I want to talk about now, because I think it's something that really will be interesting to people listening, because it's the premise of the show. This doesn't spoil it because this happens right at the start of the first episode. The premise of the show is Seth Rogen plays basically the number 2 in a studio, a big American film studio. And the boss gets fired, and then he gets the opportunity to then run a big, massive American studio and get to do all the things that he wants. And his character is this massive cinephile. He's in a big money-making studio, but he has this dream to make beautiful, crafted, wonderful art house movies, but ones that will somehow also make the studio a ton of money. And so in episode 2, it's called The Oneer, and the whole show, it's a 25-minute episode, is done in a one take.
One big
but
oneer.
It's about him going to a set
cool.
where on set in the studio that he's working for, they're filming a oneer. So it's called The Oneer because it's done in a oneer, but it's also about filming a oneer in the show. So it gets a bit meta there. And the whole thing is just absolutely wonderful. It's 25 minutes of some of the best TV that you will ever watch. It's like proper Breaking Bad, 10 out of 10 stuff. You watch that, and I promise you will be hooked. It is utterly wonderful. It's funny, it's cringy. You have your hands over your mouths. There's Larry David moments in it that you just don't really expect. It's just, it's phenomenal. You got to check it out.
Yeah, I've heard good things, and it won a ton of Emmys. And, I'm on the show here. I'm more of the movie guy than the TV show guy, but there'll be a couple shows a year where I'll earmark, and this is one of them. So this will probably be my Christmas to New Year's kind of TV show. I'm going to tuck it away till then where I can consume it all in a week. But yeah, no, it sounds incredible. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, sounds like it's right up my alley. So before we wrap up shout outs, we're going to bring in the one and only Jamey Stegmaier. So we'll cut to the interview, and he's going to do a couple of shout outs for us.
All right. Well, today we're very excited to be joined by a very special guest, someone who will be well known to most of our tabletop loving listeners. He's a publisher, designer, some of my personal favorite games. He's the co-founder of Stonemaier Games, Jamey Stegmaier. Stonemaier Games is known for modern classics like Scythe and Viticulture, my personal favorite. Both designed by Jamey as well as other popular games like Wingspan, Charterstone, and Tapestry, and many others. Jamey also has great and insightful blog about game design and publishing and newsletters. We're excited and honored and a little starstruck today to chat with him about his latest project, Vantage, and to pick his brain about the world of board games. So Jamey, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Dice Camera Action.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been scouring the shelf behind you to see if there's any games that inspired Vantage. I don't know if I see any back there in particular. Do you have any open world games back there?
I wouldn't. No, Jay is more of the of the open world.
I will say, as much as I love Seventh Continent, this game has kind of bumped that off my shelf. So I don't know what some of the main inspirations were, but this is definitely my go-to open world game on my shelf right now. I'm enjoying it both solo and with my kids and gaming groups. So I love how it scales. But Matt's got a question for you. Just one game designer to another, Jamey, because he's the designer in the group here.
Yeah. So is there a specific game or experience that provoked you to kind of dabble or get into game design specifically? And I know you're kind of thinking way back now, but I know Viticulture was your first official publication. Was there other games before that? Like, what inspired you to start game designing?
When I was a kid, I designed a few games, but they were largely based on games that I was playing at the time. Like I would play Risk and then design my own version of Risk. They were very close to those games I was playing. I played Scotland Yard, a game that I still actually enjoy, Scotland Yard, and I designed my own version of that. So as a kid, I was doing that. As an adult, when I got into modern gaming, Agricola, Stone Age, those were probably, and Fresco. Those three had a pretty heavy influence on Viticulture in particular when I got back into modern game design.
I got to get a new box for my Agricola because it's just falling apart. That's probably been my most played game in my lifetime. So I certainly resonate with that.
Yeah. There was a time where that's like all we played. I think maybe a lot of people go through that stage in the hobby where you find a game and that's just what you play every week for a while. And Agricola was our game for quite some time.
Nice.
Fair enough. So before we get kind of into the nitty gritty of Vantage, on our show, we do a segment called Shoutouts, as I said. So we want to hear about a game that you've been playing lately and something you're excited about.
Yeah, I like that you prompted me with this question. And there were a few that I thought about. But the one I want to highlight is one that's probably way under the radar. It's a game called Apostocracy. And it's, I'll pitch it as, I see Arcs on your shelf back there. It's Arcs meets the game Obsession. Obsession's like a game based in maybe Victorian, sometime in historical England. This is also a historical English game where you're trying to climb the societal ladder, but you do it in about 80 minutes instead of a longer playing time session. And at the end of it, the comparison to Arcs is that, well, during the game, there's worker placement, there's deck building with essentially standard playing cards. And you're using those cards to get access to actions to work your way up the societal ladder. But at the end of the game, you use all those playing cards, or use 7 of those playing cards that you've acquired during the game to play a hand of whist, which is kind of a classic trick-taking game that apparently they were playing in England in the 1800s.
Cool.
And I've only played it once so far, and then I lent it to a friend because he was really excited to play it again. I'm really excited to play it again too, though, both for the worker placement and the deck building, but also building up to essentially as a different game at the end that I've been working on the entire time. Was really, really cool. I really, really enjoyed that.
Very cool. That sounds interesting.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, I was going to get my wife Obsession because she's obsessed with anything Victoria age related, movies and games, but I thought it's a little too chunky for her. So this might be a better option. So I'm going to get my hands on that one right away. Awesome.
Very cool.
There's still a lot to think about in the game, but it is lighter. It is faster than Obsession. Yeah.
Nice.
Very cool. Okay. And then a movie or TV show that you've been watching or binging lately that you're excited about.
This one's so hard because my partner Megan and I watch a lot of what I think is pretty good TV, pretty good movies. But one that surprised me recently was the new Pixar movie that flew way under the radar this summer, a movie called Elio. Have either of you seen this?
Yeah, I've seen it. It unfortunately just bombed and it disappeared, but it's good.
It did. That was my impression too. I was like, I wasn't compelled to watch it from the marketing, but then it showed up on Disney Plus and we watched it and I was delighted by it. Like it's a story about a kid who wants to be abducted by aliens, which I think is a tough sell. Like that's a tough sell for any company to sell. But once that hook showed up in the movie in the first few minutes, I was like, oh, this is, and they did it in kind of a charming way. I was in, and I loved the adventure that this kid went on about kind of finding his place in the world and the message that you are not alone, but also along with plenty of humor and some neat alien lore and world building. I was really delighted by Elio, and even though, like you said, it flew under the radar, it bombed, I would recommend it to anybody who has Disney Plus and wants to try it out.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. It's a kind of a hidden gem that's unfortunately getting buried, but no, great. Yeah. 2 good shout outs to things that are maybe under people's radar. So a good game and a good movie to check out. Awesome. So we do want to talk about Vantage for most of our time, but I want to ask you one kind of Stonemaier question going back to the infancy of the company. So maybe we can just pull back the curtain a little bit. And, when you and your co-founder, Alan Stone, when you first set out to establish Stonemaier, what were your initial strategic goals? What were your values for Stonemaier? And maybe to this day, what are some of the targets that you're using to evaluate games that are part of the growing Stonemaier family, even from yourself, or you're inviting a lot of other games in? Obviously Wingspan comes to mind. That was one of the first big hits from another designer for Stonemaier. So what are some of those values, goals, or targets from the from the outset of the company to today?
Yeah, I'll try to give the short version of that question,
Sure.
which is originally when I started working on viticulture, I wanted to put it specifically on Kickstarter. I wanted to self-publish it. I wanted to put it on Kickstarter because I wanted to have the ability to connect potentially one-on-one with each of our customers and everyone who played the game. Like that was the fascinating thing about Kickstarter to me, that I could actually see the names and the faces of the people who were playing the game and talk to them and interact with them and thank them. And that the principles and philosophies behind that, I would say, have continued to this day, even though we have a lot more people who are aware of our games and have played our games compared to that original first campaign. I still try to give anyone who shows up and wants to talk about our games on social media or at a convention, I want to give them that time to chat. That's a huge part of my job now. And part of that is the overriding philosophy of that we make games to bring joy to your tabletop. It's about you. Your tabletop is about serving you. It's about adding value to you. It's not about us. And that we've tried to keep that philosophy even as we've grown from essentially a one-person company with Alan supporting me to an 8-person company here in 2025. As for the game specifically, this has changed a little bit over the years, but for the most part, we still aim to make event games kind of the main meat of a game night. That might vary between a 45-minute game and maybe a 2+ hour game. Vantage, as you know, can probably go even longer than that if you want to keep on going. Yep. So like the main event game and the games that play at least 1 to 5 players, sometimes a little bit more than that. That's part of our.
Yeah, and for those that like solo gaming, and that's neither of us, but for those that do, you have your great automa, that you have embedded in the games where people can play solo as well. So, and that's been my experience. These are event games. I think my greatest gaming experience was the Rise of Fenris with my gaming group. And I sent out invitations. Cool. Nobody knew what role they were in. We showed up in full cosplay. We went through it and we still talk about it to this day. It was magical. So that's been my experience as well. These are really event games and their experiences beyond the game on the table. All right, well, let's talk. Speaking of experiences, Vantage has been quite the experience for me. And I know many, many others. As one of the Stonemaier champions, I was able to get my copy, I think here in Canada in July. I've got it to the table a few times. It's actually on the table mid-game at home. That's why I don't have it here with me right now. I got to go back and finish what I started a couple of days ago. But I want to talk about the journey of designing this game, because this is a whole lot of game. There are 1,000+ cards in this game, massive open world sandbox game. 7-8 years? How long, like from the idea generating between your ears to me getting my game on the table? Like, can you, in a nutshell, talk about that process? How long? I'm guessing this is probably the longest game design that you've had, right?
By far, yeah. I started working on this game before the pandemic, which feels like decades ago. It was technically 8 years ago. I think 8.5 years ago. Really, the way I'm able to remember it is that the original inspiration was the video game Zelda Breath of the Wild. Not the Zelda part, but the open world first-person perspective aspects.
That's funny because my son and I were talking about that game when we first got it to the table. He said, "This feels like Zelda in a box." Yeah.
Yeah. That was I'm not much of a video gamer, but I watched so many reviews and like Let's Play videos of people playing Zelda Breath of the Wild. I was fascinated by it. That was a big inspiration. I think that came out in like the winter of 2017, and that's when I had the idea and started working on it.
Okay.
And then you got your copy about 8.5 years later.
Yeah. Wow. So during that 8.5 years, obviously a lot of highs, a lot of lows. Were there some big like hurdles? Like what were maybe one of the biggest hurdles you hit or stalled in that process, or maybe one of your aha moments when you unlock something? Can you share a little bit about some of those experiences over the 8.5 years?
Yeah. One of the things that kind of answers all those questions is it ended up being a massive world. There are over 800 unique locations in the game, and these are first-person locations. So you're looking at the world from a first-person perspective. And in the final version of the game, almost every location has 6 different ways that you can interact with that location. And generally, you choose one of them. You can only choose one. That's for many reasons, but mostly it's a thematic reason. If you decide to cut down a tree, you can't also climb that tree because it would thematically contradict. But it wasn't always that way. It wasn't always that every location had 6 different actions. Earlier on, it had like 2 or 3 actions. And so one of the big moments in the game that was also, I kind of want to say discouraging, but it was also invigorating, was when I realized that I wanted the 6 different skills, the 6 different core actions, and I wanted all 6 to be on every location. And it was discouraging because I had 800 locations to populate with essentially 3 or 4 other actions. But it also felt like the right thing. It was just daunting to make any change like that. And that was one of the biggest ones, because it's not like I could just over the weekend put those together. That was essentially adding a year of work to the game to go through those locations one by one and really add hopefully something meaningful to every one of those actions.
Sure. Well, I guess when life gives you lemons, like a global pandemic, you squeeze some lemonade by taking on an ambitious project like this, right? You have nothing but time on your hands. Yeah. But yeah, true. The fact there's 800 plus cards and 6 potential actions for each is fantastic. It's phenomenal. And, you know, I know you've shared, I'm sure this has been shared a lot, like the choose your own adventure novels. I remember when I was a kid, literally on my bed, there was a whole collection of those, and I would read those every night, and, you know, different branches and trees. And I thought a lot about my childhood playing this game because it's just wide open sandbox. Zelda came to mind. Choose your own adventure books came to mind. Now that this game is out in the wild, widely available, what's the feedback been, and what's your anxiety level when a new game's being published out in the wild? Like, you know, I mean, this is an old hat for you, but there's got to be some joy and anxiety mixed in. What are the responses going to be? How have the responses been for Vantage?
It's been, I mean, for any game that we publish, I don't publish it if I don't love the game, whether it's designed by me or somebody else. Vantage is particularly special because I put a lot of myself into this game. I put a lot of time and effort and creative energy. I fully fell in love with the game as I was designing it, but I didn't necessarily know how it would work for other people. Even through playtesting, there was great feedback through playtesting, but I was often hearing that from people who were loving the game and playing it a lot because they were enjoying it. And so now that it's been released, it certainly is not for everyone. There are some people that aren't into the vibe of the game. Totally respect that, totally get that. Yep. But I have also heard a lot of people who that are loving it and are connecting with people in their life, whether it's their son or their daughter or their spouse who maybe doesn't normally play games. And I've heard that about other games of ours as well, like Wingspan. I hear that all the time about Wingspan and someone playing that with a partner. But I've heard that a lot about Vantage so far. Even parents who are like using it, like they give their kids extra boost tokens if their kids do chores and things like that. And that is like, the kids are actually getting excited about that. That's love incredible. That.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, I figured this would be like a new niche. Like, not everybody's going to be into viticulture side, but this can connect intergenerationally, like maybe more so than any other game from Stonemaier, which is what I've appreciated, like playing with my son and other kids in our church community and other things. It's been fantastic. So I do have a question about a strategic decision you made, and I want to get your answer. Like you said very early on, this is going to be standalone, in the box, no expansions, no campaign, no add-ons. Which makes sense. There's a whole lot of game in that box. It's highly replayable. But what was the logic behind that? Did you think about for a while of adding some add-ons to this particular game, or did you know early on this was going to be one box, one buy, and that's it?
That was a choice that I faced maybe much earlier in the game's design when I didn't know exactly how big the world would be. There was a certain point in the design where I kind of decided and committed to making it a full planet, because I thought it would be cool if you could actually walk all the way around the planet and end up where you started. And once I decided that was important to me, whether or not that was the right choice for the game, but I was excited by that, I was kind of deciding to put everything that I designed for the game in the game from the start. Because I couldn't just put like a few biomes. Like a few biomes would have been a complete game, I think, for some people, and then I could have added other biomes to the world. But that would have meant I'd be giving you just a chunk of the planet instead of the entire planet in one box. That's part of it. And also you've seen it with the storybooks, the way everything is interconnected, like one card leads to some specific other cards. It would be, I would think, it would be possible to design a new game using the system, but to incorporate new stuff into the existing system,
it's difficult. Yeah,
I think it would be difficult, if not maybe close to impossible.
Might almost feel like something like whatever you're adding to the original game is what was missing out of the first game. You don't want to like bifurcate what you were originally working on, right?
Well, I was going to say, I think before the game came out, a lot of people were asking about that, like, and they were saying things like, "Oh, what if you add a region that does this, or what if you could go underground, or what if you go underwater?" And as I was hearing that stuff, I was like, "Well, just play the game and see what's in it," because all of those things are in the game, and probably more than most people have discovered yet. So
absolutely, I can count on my both hands how many times I've got it to the table. I'm just barely scratching the surface. So this, I could see this being a game where I don't get it on the table like every day, but like when I have holidays or weekends or something, we have a weekly visit or we re-explore. And even when you see those same location cards, it's amazing. Like, oh, last time I cut down the tree. Well, let's climb it this time and see what happens. Right? Exactly. That's the beauty of this game, right? Very rarely, if ever, you're going to see a scenario that repeats because there's so many variables and options, which is awesome. So I guess in a nutshell, what's your hope for people that own this game, or maybe they're listening today and they're a little more intrigued to pick it up? And what's your hope for the particular event or experience that people have with this game in particular?
Well, I have a couple hopes, I would say, but part of it is what you just said. I hope that people, even if someone gets really excited about the game and plays it a couple times in a row, maybe multiple times in a row, that's awesome. But I would love for it to be, since it's not a campaign game, it's the type of game that you can just put down on the table whenever you want on special occasions, well into the future. I think it has that level of replayability. And if it resonates with people, I hope they feel the ability to do that. Also, I don't typically play games solo. You two said you typically don't play games solo. While this is from the ground up, designed to be a fully cooperative game that you're working with other players at the table, I have also found that I enjoy playing this game solo. I enjoy Vantage solo.
As do I, which is rare for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it doesn't, there's no special mode to play solo. You just, it takes 3 minutes to set up and you're crash landing on the planet. And sometimes I just set a time limit. I'm like, okay, I have an hour. I'll just play this for an hour. I'll just go have an adventure. And I've had a blast doing that. So anyone who doesn't typically play solo games, maybe give it a try if you just want to chill for 45 minutes to an hour. See what
you can do like me. You can start, leave it on the table, go to work and come back and revisit it in the evening, right? Which is the beauty of it. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. No, awesome. Now I know, being a Stonemaier fan and follower for many years, like you typically, you code name your upcoming games and you keep your cards close to the vest. And I appreciate that. But rumor has it, there might be an announcement of an upcoming game soon. Can you share a little bit about what might be coming soon or next from Stonemaier?
Yeah, I haven't talked about it with anyone yet that in this form, any members of the media. So this will be my test run to say something about the game.
Oh man, we are honored.
So my final new game of 2025, or our final new game, is a co-design between me and a local friend here in St. Louis, my friend Pete. It is. I talked about apostocracy earlier. I mentioned arcs that I see on the shelf here. This is a tableau building, engine building, trick-taking game about becoming a superhero or potentially a supervillain. You're telling your origin story. The game is called Origin Story. You're telling your origin story through 5 trick-taking rounds as you are getting stronger and stronger and eventually becoming a full-on superhero or supervillain at the end of the game. I love trick-taking games, but I always kind of miss a sense of progression from the beginning to the end of the game. I want to feel like I'm more powerful at the end of the game. So that was the goal of this game, Origin Story, as we were working on it.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Ironically, Matt's working on his second game design. It's a trick-taking game as well. So that's right.
Really? Okay.
Great minds think alike. That's fantastic.
Do you have a twist to it that you're putting in it, Matt?
Yeah, it's a trick-taking game called Fermi Paradox, and it is a trick-taking game with resource management and contract fulfillment. So when you first get a hand, a portion of the card is for the trick-taking, and then a portion of the card is for the contract fulfillment. So when you play a card into the trick, it'll get you some resources potentially if you meet certain conditions. But whatever cards you do not play at the end of the hand, you'll use the bottom part of the card, which is the contract fulfillment. And then you can kind of get rid of some of the cards in your hand to kind of set that up just so. So we're still working on the balance and everything, but yeah, that's basically the twist on the game. So we're really excited about it.
I love that choice in Dune Imperium where you're choosing which cards not to use during the round. It sounds maybe a tiny bit like that. So that sounds awesome. Yeah. I look forward to trying that.
I think that's Matt's. That's your favorite game, right? Dune Imperium Uprising.
Dune Imperium is my favorite game. Yeah. Yeah. I know it's huge on for you as well, Jamey. Yeah.
It is.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I do love it.
Cool.
That's really
so.
fun.
Last question, Jamey. Really appreciate you giving us some time today to be on the show. But for people that maybe want to stay connected to Stonemaier, to you, how can they stay connected with you? I know I get newsletters and you've got videos and different things. How can people stay connected and abreast to origin story announcements and other things that are coming up?
Yeah, the main hub is our website, StoneMaierGames.com, and there people can choose if they want to stay connected through our newsletter, through our YouTube channel where I talk about game design, through the blog. I'm also very active on Instagram at Jamey Stegmaier and on Facebook and a little bit on Blue Sky, but mostly Instagram and Facebook for social media and Board Game Geek. If anyone ever has a question about a game, I'll often be there to answer it within a few minutes.
Amazing. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being with us today, Jamey. And my friend's too humble to self-promote, but as a thank you, we want to send you a copy of Matt's first game, which you'll see on the shelf here, Kyperium. It's a great little 2-player sci-fi game with some interesting mechanics. I think, knowing your taste, I think you'll really enjoy it. So we'll talk off air about how we can get you a copy of that. So thanks a lot, Jamey.
Send you a copy of Origin Story. You can see what that's like. Yeah. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
That'd be fantastic. Okay. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thanks, Jamey. Thanks for doing this. All right, so you just heard from Jamey Stegmaier, and
did I sound like nervous and fanboyish, or was it like because this is my guy, right? My favorite game designer, so it was a treat to interview him.
Awkward than
awkward
anything
for me.
Yeah, because I'm not like I appreciate a lot of their games, but I'm not a huge fan like you. Though I more than anything, I sort of look up to him as a designer and a publisher, right? As a designer myself, an amateur designer and a kind of an aspiring publisher.
Well, it's pretty cool. You're both adjacently working on trick-taking games.
That's right. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about that too. Yeah, it was really cool to chat with him. And so you guys just heard about Jamey's new game as well, Origin Story. So I'm excited to I guess, Jim, you didn't get to actually hear that. But Jamey's designing a trick-taking game that has to do with basically superheroes and supervillains. And it's their
up,
origin story. And you're actually
story.
sort of building up your deck or your power in the trick taking. So there's actually like a power curve where you'll get stronger and stronger throughout the trick taking, through 5 rounds of trick taking, I think is what he said.
Pretty cool stuff. But today, that'll be another full episode down the road, hopefully. But now, having Jamey unpacked a little bit about the design process for Vantage, that's going to be our feature game we want to discuss today. And Jim, we invited you to join us because I think you've got more gameplays of Vantage than both of us combined. I've got to the table a few times. Time just hasn't been allowing me too much, but and I'm sure a number of our listeners maybe have the game or are looking forward to it. Maybe they're on the fence. So this is one of the hot, if not the hottest game of 2025 right now. Certainly not for everyone, as Jamey mentioned, but I think we want to just spend some time to unpack it and we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into the gameplay. And so the game is Vantage, was published in 2025 by Jamey Stegmaier, who we just heard from. Fantastic art. I love Stonemaier Games. Their art is always fantastic, and it's a team of artists in this game. Emilian Roteval, Soren Medding, and Valentina Filic plays from 1 to 6 players. And we can talk a little more about solo play, but this is actual just you in this game, not like some other Stonemaier games where you're playing against a bot. So I think it's more appealing to those of us who don't really like solo games, as we shared in the interview. 120 to 180 minutes. Don't let that turn you off if that's too long a runtime for our listeners, because you can set this up and you can go at your own pace. You can leave it and come back to it. That's what I've done. It's set up at my home right now. And the weight of this game is 2.3 out of 5. So this is in that sort of medium, not too heavy of a game. The rule set's pretty easy to handle. And it's got a really high 8.5 BGG rating. Of course, it's pretty hot coming out of the gate. We'll see where that settles, but it's been pretty popular so far. So, Jim, why don't you share a little bit about your experiences, and let's start talking about the gameplay here for Vantage.
Yeah, sure. I mean, first up, I think on that game time that you mentioned there, I think that's pretty accurate. But I've had some games that were over in 25 minutes. It really depends on what happens. Some can last 2 hours, some can be...
And then you hang your head in shame.
So, yeah. Well, I've won a game in half an hour. So it really just depends on what happens.
Wow.
So essentially the premise of the game is you're in this spaceship and the game starts the same every single time. Something goes wrong and you will crash land on a random location somewhere on this planet that's predetermined by you chucking 2 dice. And the spiraling story begins there. And what blows me away with this game, and I think the first thing I want to talk about is just the scale of things, because you think just from chucking 2 dice that there wouldn't be that many deviating paths for what you can do. But having played the game, I think 15 times now, I've seen the same thing once, maybe one time. And that was because I specifically aimed for it, because I remembered something from maybe 5 games ago would help me do something that I now had a mission that I needed to achieve. So that's
really
one
cool.
of the complaints of the game, that having some knowledge of the game will help you play the game better next time, because obviously you remember stuff. So I think a lot of people got confused about this game, about is it a campaign game, is it a legacy game? No, it's a standalone game that you play once.
Right.
When you're done, you pack it up and you're done with it. But you will remember stuff from previous games that you can take over into new games. Have you guys experienced that? Have you re-seen anything? Have you come across things that you've already seen before?
Yeah, I've only re-seen seen one card so far, which is cool because on each location you've got like over 800 location cards in the game. You crash land, and basically if you're playing multiplayer, for those unfamiliar with the game, it's called Vantage because everybody has only their own vantage point. You're spread out if you're playing multiplayer across this planet, and you're all at different locations. And so you can see and make strategic choices. And on each of these location cards, you've got basically 6 options. And Jamey talked about just a laborious design process of adding 6 options to 800 plus cards. That's a lot of game design.
Yeah, it's wild.
And so thankfully he had nothing but time on his hands during the pandemic to do that. But yeah, the scale, as you mentioned, Jim, is just phenomenal. Like I don't think this is so replayable. I can't think of another storybook game with such a big, wide open sandbox as this. Now, Seventh Continent was the game I mentioned to Jamey. It came to mind. This is, I love that game, but I think this is going to essentially replace that game for different reasons. But the scale, the scope, the replayability, and the accessibility. This is not a heavyweight game. This is a game that anyone, children and adults, like Matt, I don't know if you've tried this with your son, but there's a little bit of reading. But as your kids get a little older, this is a game that you could play multi-generational. I appreciate that as well. So, Jim, do you want to maybe walk us through a bit of the nitty-gritty of the actual mechanics of a turn and how the game flows a little bit? We won't do a full sort of discussion of that today. There are plenty of tutorial videos out there that we can recommend, but let's just give the broad strokes of how the game mechanics work.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is dead simple. When I've taught this game, I think I've taught it in under a minute, because you learn the game by playing the game. So like I said, you start off flying in a spaceship, and you learn that by reading the back of one of the rule books, and you follow what it says in that process of flying along in this spaceship, which is basically choosing your character and getting that card out of the box for which character that you're going to be. And then you get a set amount of dice based on the number of people playing. And then, like I said, the ship crashes, you roll 2 dice and determine your starting point. And everybody in the ship, no matter how many people are playing, will all land in different places. And that's, like you're saying, your Vantage. So everyone will get their starting card, and that will be placed in front of you, and only you are supposed to see that. You're all on intercoms with the other players, and so you can describe what you see. You can read the text on the card. You can outline your 6 options to the other players. So as a group, you can discuss what it is that you think you should best do, because at this point you would have had your objective of the game. What are you trying to achieve? Because the game can just be a sandbox to go have fun and explore. And I've played the game plenty of times where I'm just hanging around, doing stuff, enjoying various things that I can find, explore, interact with. And I completely forget about what my objective of the game is. Sometimes you stumble upon things that help you with the objective. Sometimes you have an objective that's so fascinating. Yeah, and you really want to stick. You want to stick with it. But it really is up to you how you want to play the game. And then, like you said, you've got these 6 options, and they'll all be one-word prompts that are always linked to the same thing. There's a blue move, a purple look, engage, help, take, and overpower. And the words are never those words, but they're always linked to those specific actions. So you can always do something that's like moving, always do something that's like looking, etc., etc. And then you'll make your choice. You'll then turn to the page in the relevant book, be it the purple look or the orange engage, and you just type in the code into the app. And you then get a brief prompt that says a number and the main thing you're going to do. So it will describe what it is that you're trying to do. And it won't always be exactly what you think. Like sometimes maybe you want to fight and you see a thing on the card that you want to fight. But actually what you realize is you're fighting the thing that thing is fighting, and you're helping the thing that you wanted to fight. So it can go different ways. And then there'll be a number, and the number is how many dice you have to roll. And the higher the dice, the harder the challenge. But the cool thing in the game is every single time you try something, you succeed. You cannot fail in any kind of thing that you do. It's just based on the number of dice that you roll, you will either waste some time, you'll waste some health, or you'll waste some morale. and you have these dice that you place on a chart, looks like this. And as they move down, you will then eventually, if any of them get to 0, die. But the game, minor spoiler here, I suppose, says look up in the book if this happens, and essentially you get 1 reroll. And you get an opportunity to re-roll all your dice and boost up your stuff again. Because this game isn't about restricting you from trying to do stuff. This isn't about trying to take away. I think Jamey spoke a lot about this. This game is about giving you the opportunity to do anything that you want. He based it more on video games like Zelda than other games that we've seen in board games that are sandboxy. If you want to do something in this game, you'll probably be able to do it.
Yeah, you mentioned that in our interview that Zelda Breath of the Wild was a main inspiration for it. Yeah, we should say too that, your options, it's not too punishing or restrictive, but you collect certain tokens that allow you to do certain actions. So you need to have the right tokens, the color-coded tokens, to be able to take those specific actions. And if at any point your health or your time or your morale wins out, then you're getting close to the end of your gaming experience. But as you said, it's not a wasted experience, because as you go back to the game, you've got information and knowledge that you bring from previous gameplays, you and your gaming group, that will enhance and help you in future games, which is kind of a unique thing. And we asked Jamey about, when we asked him about why this wasn't a legacy game or whatnot, well, it'd be virtually impossible to add to what's already in the box. This is more than adequate. This is a lot of game for what you're paying for this. So there's a lot of value and a lot of replayability, certainly. Matt, you play this a little bit. What were your, this is not necessarily your style of game that you'd run to, but what were your experiences?
Yeah, like to be very frank, like I had no real interest. Like I was not excited. It's not my jam, right? Sure. The storytelling aspect to a game is not interesting to me personally, right? I can see the value and I can see the intrigue for other people, for sure. And if you listen to our Western Legends episode, I had the same sort of feedback. The sandbox kind of storytelling, do what you want kind of thing just didn't really appeal to me that much. But I wanted to play it at least once, because we were going to discuss it on the pod. And so I did. I had a good time, for what it was.
What was the player count?
Two. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was John and I definitely appreciate what Jamey has pulled off here. It is fascinating. It is baffling. I can't imagine the playtesting. And when he said that he didn't start by designing 6 actions per card. There was only a few per card, and then they made a decision at one point to go to 6. And I, like, in that moment, you probably saw my face turn white. Thinking of this as a designer and having to go back in each card and put 6 actions on each. It's just baffling.
There's another thousands of possibilities and actions and stories.
It's practically unlimited, right? The amount of gameplay there. Yeah. So, and I appreciate the mechanics of it as well, right? Being primarily a mechanics guy versus a story guy, I appreciate what he's put together there, and the fact that it works so well and is fairly seamless. And if you're the type of person who really likes that storytelling and the role playing, you can get really into it, and your imagination can go wild, and you can look at those images. I think I congratulate Jamey on what he's pulled off here, because it's amazing. Despite it not being for me,
sure.
I definitely appreciate what he's done there. And I will say, just to add to the mechanics of it, right? Like when you say you get your card, every card is a location. So you grab card number 573 because that's where you crash landed, and you grab it. And then in the top corner of the card, it'll show you the north, south, east, west. And then the north, south, east, and west will have numbers on them corresponding to another card that is just east of this card, just west of this card, just north and south. And so mechanically, I think that's brilliant. And so you'll choose one of the 6 actions to take, whether you want to, as Jamey said, climb the tree, chop down the tree, look at the tree, or you could just move. You could just move north. If you don't want to do anything on this card at this location, you can just move north or south or wherever, and then you just go and grab that next card that it tells you to grab. Or if you do choose to chop down the tree or to do something in that location, and in my example, in what I played, there was a cave. So I chose to, I think, scream into the cave or something like that. And then, so then I did that. And then you go to the book and the book tells you, okay, you screamed into the cave, this and this happened. And something happened where I ended up in the cave. So it says grab card number 577. So then I went and grabbed that card, and now I'm inside the cave and I have a new 6 set of options. So that's sort of the mechanically how the game functions.
Yeah. And we should say you got a limited tableau size too, right? I think it's 9 cards, right?
Of like items and things that you can gather.
That you can collect along the way. So there's not only location cards, but there's item cards or special cards as well. And so you put your character card in the middle and you sort of build around that to a maximum of 9 cards. Now you can get the one additional add-on that I did get, I don't know if you got it, Jim, is the little player boards where you can just slot in those cards, which is a nice feature, but it's not necessary to the gameplay. But so we wanted to mention that as well, because it's not just location cards. There are other cards in the game as well. And there's these boost tokens. Do you want to talk a little bit about the boost tokens, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely. And on those game mats, they're double-sided, so it holds... They're dual-layered, I should say, sorry. So that it holds the cards in really, really nicely, so you don't get any shuffling around. And the options to you as a player when you're looking at your Vantage isn't just like you said, which of the 6 things do you want to do, or do you want to move north, south, east, or west? You can do stuff from your cards as well. You can interact with them. You can interact with people that you meet. They maybe then become part of one of your cards on your tableau, and you can interact and do stuff with them. There's little mini games hidden within the game. And then on those cards, there's spaces for boost tokens, like you said. So little silver cubes that you will add to your card as you play. And then they can be used for various things to either perhaps re-roll something that if you weren't happy with a re-roll, or you can exchange them for certain tokens like we talked about earlier. And then the tokens let you basically roll less dice. Mm-hmm. So if you try and do something, and like, for example, I was playing a game the other day, I thought, I'm going to move north. That looks fairly safe because you can look at the card and you can figure out whether or not north, south, east, and west is going to be safer or harder. And it turned out that moving north was a ton hard because what I couldn't see was something really, really bad, which I won't spoil here. But stuff like this happens all the time. So, I could then get rid of a couple of my tokens that matched the color of that action, which meant instead of rolling 6 dice, which is pretty high for this game, I could get it down to 3. And that's really important because if you end up rolling 6 dice, and let's say at that point I had 2 health left and I roll 4 health that I lose, then that could be a game over situation. And when you're in quite deep to the game and you're really enjoying it, you've built up a really good tableau. You don't want that to happen. And that's a really interesting thing about this game is that sometimes your tableau will build up and it's amazing and it all works so well. Because one thing we haven't talked about is the way it works with your tableau is the cards as you get them, they have dice spaces on them. So if you roll your dice and you are going to have to lose some health or something, instead of doing that, you can put the dice on the dice spots on your card to absorb that. The power that you have learned has reduced you having to lose your health. And some of these have lightning bolts on, which means you can take dice from other people's rolls, or you can put your dice on other people's rolls, which makes the multiplayer game really interesting. As you're through your intercom, there's that shared learning of how you can do this the best way. But there's other times when you build up your tableau and it's just terrible. It doesn't work together. You've got cards that are really super specific that clearly need to work with another card, and you haven't got it, and it's just rubbish. And then you die and you think, well, good, I'm glad I'm dead because this character sucks.
But again, you carry that information forward for future gameplays. Oh, this doesn't pair with this, so I'll know that now in the future, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the world that he's created, just to go back to those multiples that you talked about earlier, with the north, south, east, and west. I had a mission the other day where I was trying to find a thing. I won't say what the thing was because, again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers. But I was trying to find a thing, and on a card it said, I need to move southwest to here. So I did that, and I couldn't find the thing. But what I did find was something very, very close to the thing. And I thought maybe that was the thing after all. But it turned out it wasn't. And I ended up moving down another path. And I got really frustrated because I really wanted to find this thing. So I went back to the starting point again. And you can never do the same action twice. You can only ever do one action on the card. You've got 6 choices. You can only do one. So I had to just keep moving. And I ended up just moving around north, south, east, and west around this location for ages trying to find this thing. So because I'm a complete nerd and a completist and I have to do everything perfectly, I emailed Jamey and said, I'm really sorry to do this, but I had this mission. Here's the card number. Are you messing with us? Is this thing not there? And he's like, no, you have to go southwest, southwest. And if you do that, you'll find the thing. But just think about the variables, right? Think about the multiple variables of going southwest, southwest from one location. There's just so many different paths there. It's just what he created is insane. It's interesting here you speak, Matt, that even you didn't enjoy it perhaps as a concept for you in terms of was it fun mechanically and creatively, and just as a concept, it's just so impressive, right?
Brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, I don't, again, this game will not be for everyone, and we like it to varying degrees, but I don't think anyone who respects the hobby can say, oh, this game shouldn't exist. Like
100%.
You have to respect the amount of devotion, dedication, and work that went into designing a game like this that is pretty unique, even among open world sandbox games, just with the amount of possibilities and variables. And so I think for me, and we'll get into what we liked and didn't like and thoughts and scores, but I think my admiration for this game is only going to grow the more I get it to the table, because I've only had a table a handful of times and I'm intrigued and I want to go back. Time has been limited. But the nice thing about this game too is you can set it up, you can play, you don't have to finish it start to finish in one sitting. If you're playing with two people or you're solo even, like I played a couple solo where I get to the table, I go, I got a meeting to go to or I got to go to bed, but leave it on the table and I'll come back to it the next day. And we can be thinking about it in between times at the table. So that's just, it becomes a more of a full-bodied experience, not only at the table but beyond. It's a type of game like Jamey likes to design where it tells a story and it's an experience. Remember that time we went southwest and we finally got what we needed? I think that adds to the value of it.
100%. And I think visually it gets me every time, because it isn't just the cards that you create in your tableau and the Vantage cards. There's also the books, right? And outside of the 6 books that you look up for the story, there's also 2 other books. One's the Book of Secrets and one is the Book of Vantages. The Book of Secrets is just full of secrets. Can't really talk too much about that for spoilers, but it reveals some really cool stuff as you explore this planet and this universe a little bit more. But the other one, the Book of Vantages, I just want to touch on a little bit, because what it does is at certain points in the game, a thing that you will do, a mission that you will complete, or an interaction that you will have will sort of semi-reward you with the opportunity to turn to page 12 or whatever it may be in the Book of Vantages, and you will get to see something. And that thing that you see is pretty simple and basic, but in the way that this game is so clever in what it holds back, in what it doesn't show you with the limited information that you have, when you just see a little glimmer, it's amazing. And sometimes you see it from a different vantage point, hence the Book of Vantages and the game being Vantage. Maybe you're higher up, maybe you're seeing it from a different thing. Again, I don't want to spoil too much, but it's absolutely incredible. And there's certain bits where sometimes you're trying to find where the other person is that you're playing with in the game, and there'll be a certain thing that they can see, like a real landmark, a very specific mountain or shape or structure. And maybe then 3 turns later, or even 3 games later, you will then see that, but from a completely different vantage. And it's so exciting. It just reminds me of playing 80s or 90s video games, where it felt like the designers of those games were starting to understand how you could really push the boundaries with the limitations of an old 16-bit console. This feels like that to me. This feels like Jamey has looked at what you can do with cards and dice and a box so big that it doesn't get too expensive or too heavy, and he's pushed the boundaries to a whole new level. Like this is 32-bit, right? this is the Super Nintendo, not the Nintendo. That's what this feels like to me. And you're right, it won't be for everybody, and there'll be people that want desperately to hate it for lots of reasons that we don't have to go into now. But for me, just somebody who wants to sit down and play a game and have some fun because of the intriguing world that I get to explore. Yeah, Seventh Continent for me is, I don't think I'll ever play that game ever again.
And that was my first comment to Jamey, thinking that was an influence in a similar game. Yeah, as much as I enjoyed that this essentially replaces that for me. And I know I'm not alone in that. So yeah, good.
So do we want to get into kind of our favorite thing and or maybe some nitpicks or some things we maybe didn't enjoy about the game?
Sure, Jim. Why don't you start with that? Your experience is a little more than Matt or mine with this game at this point. So I know we've already talked about it, but what's maybe the number one thing for you? And if you have a nitpick, if any, what were those?
Sure. Yeah, like is there is there a what's the soul of this game?
I think the soul is the intrigue, right? And that's my number one thing is I find this game so intriguing, and I will play this game until I have found everything, until I have seen everything, until I have explored everything, right? This is old school GTA where I'm logging on and I'm seeing what percentage I am completed. I'm playing this game because I want to get 100%. And I'll get to a point where I'm just grinding and I'm maybe not even enjoying it as much as I used to. I just have to see everything because it's so intriguing to me. There's so many secrets, so many mini games, so many. I'm really trying to be careful not to spoil it, right? But there's things that you do with the cards that are like ever so slightly different. But when it happens, your mind is like. So I think the number one for me is the intrigue of it. This is this massive whole universe that you get to explore, and I find the whole concept and experience utterly intriguing.
Yeah, intrigue is a good word. I think when I'm looking at my game collection, I try and have a diversity of games, and I don't have a ton of storybook open world games like this, but to have a couple that you can go to periodically for that intrigue, for that full bodied experience, when you want to change it up, right? I'm glad I own this game. I will continue to go back to this game. This game will never get old, will never get stale. And for someone who watched his 14-year-old son just play Zelda Breath of the Wild endlessly a few years ago, to invite him to have a similar experience with and others, I think this is only going to grow in my admiration after limited playthrough so far.
Cool. Do you guys have any nitpicks or any little things that maybe don't kind of work for you or maybe rub you the wrong way?
Well, just for the first few times I played it, the more I think about it, maybe it's not as nitpicky, but just this thematically, how well does every time I revisit the game growing in knowledge work when I'm supposed to be entering the game, crash landing on this planet over and over? It's like day after tomorrow kind of thing. But thematically, I don't know how well that works, but it adds to the intrigue of the game, bringing that into new gameplay. So I don't know. What were your thoughts on that, Jim? Did you have anything thematic nitpicks with the way the game, each time you play, it's a new game, but you're bringing previous experiences to the game? Does that fit the theme of it?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I agree. I find that a bit weird. And as much as I benefit from it and I enjoy having that knowledge, when I play with somebody who hasn't played it as much as me, which will probably be every time because I played this game so much, and I doubt anyone's going to play it as much as me and my group or family. I will always sit back and watch them do stuff, and I'm sitting there thinking, I wouldn't do that if I was you. But I don't want to say that. I don't want to be that guy. You've got to sit there and just shut up and let them find their own way, right? Yeah, and I think Jamey did comment on it. He explained sort of his version of why there's this person constantly crashing on this alien planet and doing the same thing over and over. And that's fine, but as much as the story adds up, as much as I get why it is, it's because we're playing a board game, right? We're not actually crashing on a planet. We're playing a board game,
for sure.
And every time you start any game, you're starting again from scratch. But it's interesting that Jamey is of the nature. He's a designer of the nature where people feel like they should have an opinion on everything he does. Like, why is this not a campaign game? Why is this not a legacy game? Why would I want to play this game again and again and again? And I feel like people question him and his designs way more than they do anybody else, which is really interesting. But for me, my biggest nitpick on the game is the randomness. I don't
which is
like
a sign of respect too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's respected. He's well known, but I think it's just because he's a name and he puts himself out there, right? Not many designers have a YouTube channel where they share literally everything. He's really accessible. You can email the guy, you can call the guy. He puts himself out there, and if you put yourself out there, you're going to get the good stuff and the bad, right? But yeah, I find sometimes the game, it can be too random. Like there's obviously a lot of dice. Stuff can happen completely out of your control. You can try and build up your tableau and have an engine that works. And like I said, sometimes that happens, but other times it doesn't. And there really isn't a ton you can do to stop that. And sometimes the game just diverges down a path that you don't want to do, either out of interest or mechanics or story. And it's hard to control that. So there have been a couple of games when I've kind of just made dumb choices to kill myself off because I want to start again, you know? So I don't like that. The game can be a bit too random.
Yeah.
That's probably my biggest nitpick.
And I think that's really unavoidable, though, in a game of this nature. Whenever you have an open world storybook sandbox game, you can't help but have some of that randomness built in. But I think this is mitigated better than most, at least the other games of this nature that I've played. So
I think this game covers the mitigation really, really well. There's a lot of options with the boost tokens and with obviously the dice placements of certain things that you can do to mitigate a bad roll. But sometimes it's just you have to accept the fact that it's going to go the wrong way. And I think that's why the game gives you that do-over where if you die, again, I don't want to spoil too much, but, you know, fast forward the next 30 seconds if you don't want to hear what happens when you die, but it will happen to you pretty quick, probably in your first game, probably within about 15 minutes. The rule book just says, if you're happy being dead, then that's the end of your game. Well done. Hope you enjoyed it. Play again. Yeah, but if you're not happy, then re-roll all your dice, and whatever you roll, you'll get some stuff back. And I feel like that's in there for a good reason. It mitigates this problem that we're talking about, but it's the problem is that sometimes you just have to have a do-over. And I don't know whether that exists in many games because the necessity to have a do-over suggests there's a problem in the first place. And this is the way they've tried to overcome it. And I think it works and it's fine, but I don't necessarily like it. That said, having now played the game a ton, I don't get in that position very often now. I think in the last 7 games, I haven't died. So as you get better with the game, you get to understand the game, you learn how to mitigate your risks with the choices that you make. So you will start to understand where the game is sort of nudging you and pushing you, which is interesting because then you actually think, okay, is this the sandbox is I think, or is the game asking me to do this? Because some cards, like I said, you can only do one thing per card. But some cards, if you do it and you say, oh, here's a thing, I'm going to look at it. And you look at it and the rule book says, you look at this thing and it looks really intriguing. You can now have another turn. And you're like, oh, I get another turn on this card. Cool. So then you think, okay, I'm going to go up and I'm going to touch this thing. And the rule book says, you go up and touch this thing. It seems really interesting. You can have another turn. And the card will just keep pushing you and pushing and pushing you until eventually you say, okay, cool. I'm going to just jump into this thing. And then you find out that this thing is a teleport and you get teleported to another place or whatever it may be. I'm just like making stuff up. That's not a specific spoiler. But there are just some cards that are just really nudging you. They're funneling you to do the thing that it wants you to do. So, yeah, you've just got to go into this game knowing there are hundreds of cards, hundreds of locations, thousands of variabilities, and not always every game is going to be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what it is, right? Like you're, and if you think about it thematically, it makes sense. Like sometimes you crash land on a planet, things don't go well, and you die pretty quick. And so, you know, you Groundhog Day it and you do it again, you know. There's almost a layer of that, right? The Groundhog Day thing where you're just starting your day over and again. So very cool. I mean, you know, we can move to scores unless you guys have more to say.
Yeah, I think we've kind of given people an idea of whether this game is for you or not, right? Like it's either going to be maybe a game like for Matt that's not his go-to, but he respects it, or not my primary style game to go to, but because of the publisher and designer I adore and having this a part of my collection, I want this game and it'll grow on me. Or like Jim, this is just he's eating this up, right? game after game. So yeah, why don't we pivot to our scores? And Jim, why don't we'll start with you. I'm guessing you're pretty high on this one. Where are we at with it right now after 15 plus plays?
I'll give this game a 2. I don't really like it. It's not for me. This game for me is a 9. I think it's fantastic. I think it does a lot of stuff that we've seen in games before, but like I said, I think it does it better. I think it ramps everything up to 11. It really pushes the boundaries with this sort of thing. I find the concept absolutely intriguing, as I've said. I think the ambition of the game is just every moment, every part of this game that you touch when you play it, you feel and you sense that ambition. It feels like Jamey was trying to create something that really blew you away and impressed you. Even if you don't dig the game, I think you're going to dig the sense of scale here. But if you do want something that does have a story, but does have that sense of exploration and intrigue and fun, like if you enjoyed the sort of video games that we're talking about, I think Monkey Island is closer to me for this than Zelda.
Yeah.
That level of intrigue of trying to figure out these mysteries. If you like those sorts of things, then I think you're absolutely going to love this. So, yeah, this is a solid 9 out of 10 for me. I absolutely adore it.
Yeah, Monkey Island. That's an interesting comparison. I was thinking of like the classic Myst game as well. That's one I grew up loving, and that sort of world. So yeah, similar. I've enjoyed those games, and because I'm not as many plays into you, I can't quite give it a 9 yet. It may grow there, but I'm at an 8 right now with this one, which is a solid score. I haven't played double-digit plays yet, and I could see this growing very quickly to a 9. Probably won't hit a 10 just because this isn't my primary go-to style of game, but who knows? But yeah, this is a solid 8 for me right now, and I love it because this is high praise because I don't like solo games at all, but this is one of the few games I'll sit down and solo from time to time, and I think it plays well solo, and it plays well with. It scales well. We didn't talk about that. It scales well. I've played with 2, I played with 4, I played with 1, and it's been enjoyable every way. Every player counts. So it's at an 8. And I don't know, Matt, can you even rate this having played it just the once?
I mean, I don't even want to put out a number there. It's, I was trying to think of an analogy to explain like my position on this. Like if you don't like, or you're not into classical music, and somebody plays you a piece of classical music and says, rate this as compared to other pieces of classical music, it's not fair for you to even try, right? But you can listen to it and appreciate how beautiful it is, and say like, wow, like if this was my genre of music, like it sounds great. And like clearly it's well made and it's well composed, but like I can't really appreciate it for what it is because it's just not something that that I'm into. Right. So that's sort of how I feel about this game. I like, it blows me away when I open that box and see the amount of cards in there, and then I see how the system works. I appreciate it. And I congratulate Jamey on what is obviously an incredible piece of work. But yeah, just not something that is for me specifically. So I don't want to insult it or by even trying. I would probably give it a high number, but I give it a thumbs up, I guess, as opposed to a thumbs down. Sure. And that's kind of where I stand on it. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is the next time I have a Vantage game night, make sure there's no classical music on the playlist.
That's where I was going with this. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Well, that's Vantage. And hey, you heard from the designer himself, Jamey Stegmaier, in the interview, and it was a joy to interview him and joy to get to know you a bit, Jim, and your experiences with the game. So why don't we kind of pivot as we do? And hey, if you're listening and intrigued by the game, it's widely available now. You can pick it up, and Stonemaier Games is worth tracking along with, especially with that exciting announcement that Jamey made with his forthcoming game. So
speaking of announcements, we have an announcement pertaining to Vantage. So we, as you will have heard recently, there's been some ads on our podcast. Right. So we've been kind of partnered with Board Game Bliss, and through that partnership, we're actually going to give away a copy of Vantage. So I don't have the details for you exactly at right this moment of how you'll, get your ballots in to win it. But if you follow me on Instagram, Dice Camera Action Pod, or there's a Facebook group as well, and on the next podcast for sure I'll have what I'll actually do. I'll say this right now: once we figure out the exact mechanism of how we're going to do ballots in this giveaway, I'm going to drop just a mini pod of 2 or 3 minutes explaining what you can do. But yes, stay tuned, follow us along here on the podcast and on our socials, and we will be giving away a copy of Vantage to anybody who lives in North America. Sorry, Jim. But yeah, it'll be available to anybody in North America. So stay tuned for that. I want to take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor, BoardGameBliss.com, which is honestly where I've been buying games for years. This isn't some random ad read. They're literally the only people I reached out to because I already love what they do, and I was relieved when they said yes so I could be fully genuine when endorsing them. They've got a huge inventory of games and are always super competitive price-wise, which is important to me. At Board Game Bliss, we believe in the magic of play. Board games spark joy, forge connections, and create unbelievable moments. We source exceptional titles from around the globe, so your table always has something exciting to offer. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, there's always a new favorite waiting to be found. Go to BoardGameBliss.com and find out why they're my personal favorite place to buy board games. All right, so let's get into the movie of the podcast. So we chose 65, the Adam Driver movie, and it was released in 2023, directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, and again stars Adam Driver as well as Ariana Greenblatt. So the synopsis is as follows. Adam Driver plays Mills, a brooding pilot who leaves his family behind for the most cliche reason ever, to pay for his daughter's life-saving treatment. Naturally, he crash lands on a mysterious, uncharted planet, which just so happens to be Earth, exactly 3 days before the dino-killing asteroid strikes. Turns out the universe is just a cosmic merry-go-round, and he's hopped on at the worst possible time. Now he's stuck navigating swarms of sticky bugs, hordes of CGI dinos, and technology that makes zero sense. But hey, at least he looks pretty badass doing it. So the question is, fellas, does Adam Driver hold this thing together, or does it sink into a 65 million year old pit of quicksand? What did you think, Jim?
Yeah, more quicksand, I'd say. It's fun, right? I enjoyed the movie. It's like a classic Sunday afternoon. You're tired, maybe you had too many drinks the night before, and you don't want to think too hard, and you just want to watch something that's relaxing and fun. And this is definitely that. And visually, it looks great. There's some cool set pieces in it, some cool action scenes, and there's a little bit of intrigue and mystery there, although you figure out what's going on pretty much already. I mean, in that 30-second piece there, that's like the whole story, right? And if you watch the trailer of this movie, you've seen that movie. But it's fun, and I enjoy it, and I think it passed some time, right? But I will probably never, ever, ever watch it ever again.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. Jason, what did you think?
Yeah, I will. That's an hour and a half I can't get back. I'll never watch it again. Not even Adam Driver can save this movie. It's telling that when they were promoting this, it was all just Adam Driver, Adam Driver, Adam Driver. They were trying to carry it on the back of a star, but there's really nothing for him to work with here. There's really not an interesting plot. Yeah, there's a couple cool set pieces, but you can get that in far better movies everywhere else. But hey, it's a great pairing for this episode to pair with Vantage, because it is a crash landing. Where am I on this planet? What planet is this? What am I seeing? So there's some interesting things, some interesting locations, almost like the location cards in Vantage. But it is cliche. I actually found it kind of boring. I mean, once you get there's another dinosaur and another dinosaur, another dinosaur. It's just like, it would have been cool if they kind of added some different kind of creatures. We haven't had a good dinosaur movie since 1993, which is crazy. I mean, like, dinosaurs are awesome. Why can't we make any more good dinosaur movies?
True.
Even Spielberg just made the one to end them all. Right? So yeah, this is not a good movie, but it's an interesting pairing. And hey, I'll keep riding with Adam Driver, but this is a dud.
Yeah, I will say Adam Driver is probably one of my favorite working actors. I think he's amazing. I'm a huge fan. And that being said, I think he barely carries this thing on his back. It barely has I wouldn't even say necessarily has a quote unquote passing grade. But it's watchable. I think it looks good enough, and Adam Driver is good enough that it's watchable. And, as you said, I think there's some really cool technology that's kind of interesting to see. As long as you don't think about it too, logically, right? Like, the guns are kind of cool. I think the sound design on the guns are really neat. I actually really enjoy it. There's like a digital pulse kind of thing that I thought was cool. So there's a handful of things that you're like, oh, that's neat. Oh, that's cool. I haven't seen that before. I think the dino CGI, despite it being obviously CGI, is very good. So there's some good stuff about this. I don't think that the two leads had any chemistry. No. And I don't really understand some of the choices either. Like, there's midway through the movie, something happens that scares the little girl, and she goes and hides and with her head against the boulder or something. And then she's acting like she's terrified of Adam Driver. He's already been working with her and has saved her life on multiple occasions, and now she's scared of him. So there was like a handful of moments like that where I'm like, I don't understand the motivation. It's almost like there was other things that happened that they cut out, that, maybe he got mad at her in a cut and so or said something to her or like did something that scared her that they end up cutting out of the movie. It just seems a little bit disjointed in that way. Some of the stuff that I just don't understand.
Well, and this is my take on that. It's very hard to have good, believable, intimate performances when all of it's happening
On a green screen. Yeah. That's fair.
And I think this is why,
and especially for a young actress who's probably doesn't have a lot of experience.
And even Driver, right? Like, as good as an actor as he is, it's awkward and difficult. I think even the best actors, you put them on a green screen. This is why a lot of these big budget CGI laden movies, like these Marvel movies, etc., they don't have the emotional punch really as much as many other movies because of that, right? They feel a little shallow, right? They're all sizzle and no steak, so to speak. So yeah, there's some sizzle here. There's some visuals and good set pieces, but overall, it's doesn't quite measure up for me.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Jim? Like, was there any stuff in here that you did like? You know, I thought the asteroid stuff was a little ham-fisted, and the tech stuff. But how did you feel about some of that stuff?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the tech bit is probably my favorite bit. I was going to make the point about the noise the guns made as well. I'm so glad that you picked up on that. I thought that was so cool. But I guess in a dino movie, right, you either have dinos in the modern world, like with the modern Jurassic worlds, or you have dinos back in prehistoric times, right? And then if that's the case, there is no tech. And so this is the interesting bit, right? That you've got this other civilization who have traveled to Earth. And so they are now 65 million years ago on Earth, and they brought that tech with them. So there's that one scene that, if you remember, when they're trying to sleep, and so they set up some proximity alerts around them, and then they go off. And that definitely creates some intrigue and suspense, because you're like, well, what is that? You know it's a dinosaur, but what dinosaur? Is it going to be a big one with massive teeth? Is it going to want to eat them and fight them? Well, yeah, obviously. And then that happens. But the tech does, I think, add to the story. But the sad thing about this movie for me, I think, is the most iconic moment. I think it's even in the trailer, but the bit from the movie that I remember going, oh, that's cool. The best bit is when he stood there. I don't know if you guys remember. I think he's like with a waterfall behind him, and it's night, and it's raining, and it's thundering, and then the lightning strikes, and the lightning lights up the massive T-Rex.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a cool scene.
I'm pretty sure I've seen that before in another movie. I'm pretty sure that's happened before. Yeah. And the best thing in this movie,
pulled that right from another movie.
The best thing is just straight out stolen from another movie, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, it's passable fun, right?
Yeah.
It's passable fun. I think that's the best summary.
Well, I mean, if they just would have went southwest, I mean, they would have been they would have avoided a lot of this stuff, right?
That's all they had to do.
If
they should have emailed Jamey and they would have been fine. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If anyone just listened to this podcast for the movie review, which I imagine would be an insane thing to do, that will make absolutely no sense. But that was a great callback. Well done.
So one question, and this confused me until I think I made the realization that Adam Driver and his family are not on Earth at the beginning. They're from this other planet that we don't know.
Yeah, who has advanced technology 65 million years ago. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but they're speaking English as we do 65 million years later on the planet that was completely destroyed and had no survivors. That kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like, oh, okay, there'll be something left behind or something on the planet or that caused our civilization, but they don't kind of go into any of that either. So it's like a lot of big plot holes here too.
It's a very small plot hole and a very thin plot.
You're right.
Yeah, and you think they'd have they got all this tech, these cool guns. You think they'd have some universal translators or something. Like he meets her. I can't speak your language.
He did say his translator was broken or something.
But why can't you speak English?
Yeah. But was there really a point plot wise or story wise for them to not be able to communicate? Like, was that really a layer that needed to be added to this? You know what I mean? It seems a little bit silly to me.
Yeah, no, agreed. Well, here's something fun we can do, maybe, because none of us are really recommending this as a great movie, but maybe we can all put forward a couple other similar thematic movies that we would recommend. like the survivor movies where you're stuck in a terrible situation. Like, I know we've done The Martian on this podcast already, but we chose this one because it is an appropriate pairing for Vantage, given the theme and the spaceship crash, etc. But maybe what are maybe one or two other movies that we could recommend that maybe are well known or maybe lesser known? Jim, are there any other man versus beast, man versus nature movies that you would recommend?
I think the one that springs to mind when you said that is Into the Wild. Do you remember that movie? And it's sort of not man versus beast, but just somebody trying to exist and survive in the wild. I think the first time I watched that movie, it really kind of caught me, because I haven't read up on this because I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but from memory, I think that was a true story, right? And it really struck me about how deep into one person's character you can go when you are doing that kind of survival type film, right? Like the Castaway thing. Castaway is just Tom Hanks for 2 hours, right? And if you get a great character and a great actor, that can be quite interesting to really delve down into that. So yeah, I'd say something like that would probably be the thing that springs to mind.
Cool. That's a good shout out. Yeah. What about you, Matt?
Like Alien kind of comes to mind.
For sure. Masterpiece.
Is a movie where they go down to a planet because there's a crash. They figure out that there's a crashed ship of some kind on a planet, so they go to investigate, or maybe a beacon or something at the beginning, and so they go down there, and that's how the aliens up on their ship. So that could have been sort of a thematic link. If we look at you had mentioned possibly using weapons, the recent.
Well, I was trying to get that in there for you because I know you love it. I was just thinking that's a movie that's set up with all the different vantage points and character perspectives, but otherwise it doesn't really fit thematically.
Yeah, that's the only kind of link, and it is a bit of a stretch. So we chose not to go with that. But yeah, I've spoken on the pod a little bit with my shoutouts about weapons. I'm a huge fan. I rewatched it recently. I went back to the movies with a friend and saw it a second time.
I agree. It's better than 65.
Way better than 65 for sure. Yeah. So that's sort of one. But the one I think that springs to mind immediately is a movie called Sweetheart that probably no one has ever heard of. It's a 2019, really small budget movie. The synopsis says that Jen has washed ashore a small tropical island, and it doesn't take her long to realize she's completely alone. She must spend her days not only surviving the elements, but also fend off the malevolent force that comes out each night. So it's some sort of potentially creature or weird presence that comes out each night that sort of haunts her or hunts her. I don't want to say much more than that, but is a really cool little low budget indie kind of creature feature. I don't even know where you might watch it. But if you can find Sweetheart, all one word, it came out in 2019, directed by J.D. Dillard. I was a huge fan and it blew me away. So definitely, if you can find that, check it out.
Cool. I haven't even heard of it. 2019, there were so many other better movies I was just sucked into. I guess I missed that one, but yeah, we'll give it a look. You mentioned Alien. Like for me, the holy trinity of creature feature survival movies are Alien, The Thing, and Jaws. So everybody knows those. They've been talked to death. But another one that's probably a little more well known than Sweetheart, but maybe slipped through or people haven't seen it or revisited it before. Liam Neeson went into more of the B movie action movies, and now he's apparently turning to comedy with Naked Gun recently. Movie The Gray from 2011. He's a sharpshooter. It takes place on a remote Alaska oil facility. He's protecting the staff from the frequent gray wolf attacks, and so it becomes kind of a nihilistic movie with gray wolves as the antagonists. And I thought it was a really rich story. And it had some very interesting philosophical, existential themes embedded. So I don't know if you've seen that one, Jim, but one of my favorite Liam Neeson movies.
Great movie. Absolutely
start
love
with Crash Landing too.
Starts with the Crash Landing as well. Yeah.
I think The Grey should come with a warning that if anyone hasn't watched it and they decide that they want to watch it, do not watch it if you're depressed or in a bad mood, because it will send you spiraling. It's depressing as hell. But if you're in a good place,
It's a dark one.
It is a dark one. Yeah, it is a dark one. So trigger warning there, but cinematically, I think it's a pretty masterful film.
Definitely.
Yeah, fair warning. Very good.
Watch with a friend or with a call to your mum afterwards or something to cheer you up.
Yeah, and it was tough because I think Liam Neeson's wife had died not too long before he actually made that movie. Right? He's going through his own grief, and so it probably makes it more potent.
Yeah.
So there's a couple other recommendations, all of which are miles ahead of 65.
A little bit different in tone from the latest Liam Neeson movie, The Naked Gun.
Did you guys see The Naked Gun?
I did.
I thought it was hilarious.
I thought it was okay. You watch it in theater with a crowd, right?
Oh,
I watched it at home alone.
Oh, okay. I watched it between my two sisters who are laughing hysterically in a full theater. Yeah. So one of my best theater experiences of the year.
Yeah, I did laugh out loud, like despite being alone, watching it in my basement. I did laugh out loud a few times. I really loved the gag, and they kind of abandoned it. But I really love the coffee gag where like every time they walked into a room or a new place, somebody handed them a cup of coffee. You know, as you do in a crime thriller, right? You get handed a cup of coffee if you're the detective from like, you know, a grunt or
there's
something.
So many little Easter eggs and things. And I think much like Vantage, it'll reward rewatching.
Yeah. Cool. So let's move on to ratings then. Jim, you want to start us out? What was your kind of final thoughts and your rating out of 5 for what movie was it again? 65.
Yeah, I'd give 65 a 2 to be generous. I think it's passable, it's fun, and you don't have to think, right? It's a switch your brain off and just chill type movie. I don't think you can go higher than 2 though.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm feeling generous, so I'll give it 2, and it's between that 1.5 and 2. But there's a couple set pieces. The gun's cool, and Adam Driver barely gets it over the finish line. So it's a 2 out of 5 if I'm feeling generous like I am today.
Yeah, we did not conspire or discuss this previous, but yeah, same with me. I'm a 2. I think it's just fine. It's like one of the most aggressively okay movies I've seen in a long time. Just aggressively okay.
It's on par with Krampus.
You just will never drop that in your entire life.
It's a running bit on the show.
Right on. All right, you wanna land this plane, Jason?
Sure. If you hung out with us through 65, congratulations. You got to hear about a great board game. You got to hear from a fantastic designer in Jamey and a subpar movie with some other recommendations. So if you're enjoying the podcast, we hope you are, please take a few minutes to rate and review on whatever platform you're listening on. You can also follow us on Instagram at Dice Camera Action Pod. If you have any feedback, comments, or would like to suggest a movie game pairing, our ears are wide open. We want to get your suggestions. So let us know what we can do in future episodes. So shoot us an email anytime at dicecameraactionpod@gmail.com. So on behalf of Jim, all the way from the UK, thanks for being with us. Matt Cousineau, I'm riding shotgun today. Jason Tripp, thanks for being with us today on Dice Camera Action.
I don't think there's ever been a weirder arc for an episode where like Vantage, this like super new hot game. We've got Jamey Stegmaier on the episode. He's announcing a new game, you know, all this excitement. And then we're like, 65.
That's fun though.
No, it's not.